Welcome to the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. This is our 221st episode. My name is Sansara Taylor, and today is November 8th, 2024, 3 days after Trump was reelected president.
The Fox News decision desk can now officially project that Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States.
Shock, rage, fear, resignation. As the reality that Trump won the election set in, immigrant families froze in silent terror at the impending raids, the racist violence, and the families ripped apart, locked away, or hurled across borders, never able to caress each other again. Women seethed with rage, as well as a disorienting sense of deep betrayal that half of this country didn't just fail to prioritize their rights and their lives, but actively hungers to see them humiliated and punished. Trans people winced at the sting of hatred. Parents struggled for words to reassure scared children, and among decent people everywhere, a hollowed out feeling, a growing ache in the pits of their stomachs, a fear for the future, and a deep sense of despair. Donald Trump, notorious PIG and self-confessed pussy-grabbing hater of women, unhinged habitual liar, Nazi venom-spewing basher of immigrants, shoot 'em in the knees white supremacist, retribution promising, rule of law trampling, America first outright fascist, has been elected president. In just weeks, he is scheduled to assume the full powers of the state. Back in 2017, speaking to the nightmare confronted by the first Trump presidency, Bob Avakian, revolutionary leader and author and architect of the new communism, said this:
We are now being ruled by a fascist regime, relentlessly assaulting civil rights and liberties and openly promoting bigotry and inequality, acting with callous disregard or cold-blooded malice toward those they consider inferior and a drain or stain on the country, on a mission to deny health care to millions who will suffer and many who will die without it, crudely degrading women as objects of plunder, breeders of children without the right to abortion or birth control, subordinate to husbands and men in general, defying the science of climate change, attacking the science of evolution, and repudiating the scientific method overall. A regime brandishing an arsenal of mass destruction and threatening nuclear war, intensifying state terror against Muslims, immigrants, and people in the inner cities, unleashing and giving encouragement and support to brutal thugs spewing vile America first, white supremacists, male supremacists, and anti-LGBT venom. A regime that boasts of all this and declares its intention to do even worse.
All this still holds, but this time, it's worse. This time around, Trump has a supposed mandate from the people. Trump has learned from his previous experience. He has vanquished his enemies in the election, and he is moving to do so in the legal arena. This time around, Trump has a fascist Supreme Court. He has purged the Republican Party of any who opposed him, and he has whipped up and ridden a wave of fascist resentment, frustrated entitlement, and a thirst for retribution back into power. This time, Trump will be less constrained than his first term and more unleashed and determined. Worse, essentially, half of this country voted for this nightmare. Yeah, they voted for this. And as Bob Avakian put it in his social media message number 98.
And don't bother with that bullshit that the basic reason why people support Trump is because they are having a hard time economically and so on. In fact, many Trump supporters are well off economically, and some are very rich. But even for those who are having a hard time economically, the really relevant question is, why do they support the all-the-time lying, ignorance-promoting, racist, misogynist, hater of women, and all-around fascist Donald Trump? The answer can only be that at the very least, they find nothing wrong with racism and misogyny, which makes them misogynists and racists. What a terrible irony for those black people and other people of color who support Trump. Just like those who supported Hitler and the Nazis in Germany, they support a fascist because fascism appeals to them. And what does it say about this country, this supposed great democracy and leader of the free world, when basically half the country supports fascism?
All of this has to be squarely faced by anyone who wants to keep and hold on to your humanity in the months and years to come. But for all of you out there who might still be thinking or hoping that the Democratic Party has anything to do with anything positive up against this nightmare, here is another equally significant truth of importance. The Democratic Party cannot fight these fascists in the way they need to be fought. They cannot do this because as a ruling class party of this system of capitalism imperialism, the Democratic Party cannot offer a positive alternative to this fascism. They cannot provide a means for achieving any of the things that decent people aspire to, and they cannot bring an end to the things that decent people righteously hate. The genocidal slaughter of Palestinians by Israel, which is being armed and backed by Biden and Harris and the entire Democratic Party, as well as the Republican Party, by the way, is a concentration of this. And with whatever differences the Democrats and Trump may have over Russia and Ukraine, they are united in their preparation for war with China, with all the terrible consequences of that for all of humanity. Further, despite some pretense and deception on the part of these Democrats, the same is true down the line of all the crucial things that decent people care about, from the accelerating destruction of the environment to oppression based on race, sex, and gender, to the persecution of immigrants. These Democrats cannot bring about a just resolution to any of this, for the fundamental reason that all of this is built into the system that they represent and enforce. Here is just one illustration of this among many. Did you watch Harris's concession speech on the day after the election? Despite some meaningless platitudes about freedom, this was a speech that was nothing more than a miserable call for capitulation to the fascism of Trump on the basis of allegiance to this system.
We must accept the results of this election. Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition.
Allegiance to this system which has given rise to this fascism, along with all the other monstrosity this system has brought forth from its beginning in slavery and genocide right down to today. If you genuinely hate injustice, you cannot maintain your conscience or your humanity while following Harris and joining in this capitulation. All of this, including the fact that these Democrats cannot and will not fight these fascists the way they must be fought, is in turn an expression of a deeper reality. This fascism has been bred and fed by this system of capitalism imperialism. This fascism has grown out of the very soil of this country, with its whole history and current reality of horrific atrocity, its fundamental relations of ruthless exploitation and murderous oppression of people here and all over the world, and the putrid culture that has rationalized and even celebrated all of this. Yeah, very late in the final days of the campaign, Generals Mark Milley and John Kelly, both of whom served under Trump, came out and accurately described Trump as a fascist. Even Harris herself said this a couple of times. But then Harris and the Democrats continued to actively undermine the reality of this threat by spreading and focusing on the illusion that the real problem with Trump is that he only thinks about himself, or that he's dividing us, the American people.
We all have so much more in common than what separates us.
These Democrats are actively covering over the reality that essentially half the country supports a fucking fascist. In his piece, published just before the election called Fascism and the Whole System, Bob Avakian spoke truthfully to why the Democrats cannot speak to all of this. He said this is because, quote, to acknowledge that essentially half the country is fascist blows apart the whole shining city on a hill and leader of the free world mythology, which is crucial for the way they seek to hold this country together and project its power in the world, end quote. So all this brings me to something that is critically important. So long as your horizons are limited to what is possible within the confines of this system, so long as you believe that the only realistic choices in terms of the direction of society involve supporting one or another ruling class party of this system, the Democrats or the Republicans, the result will be a continuation of horrors. It is time to look seriously for solutions outside and beyond this system. It is time for a revolution to overthrow and uproot this whole system and bring into being a fundamentally different and much better system. And this revolution is possible because of Bob Avakian and the work he has done over decades. There is a whole new framework for human emancipation, a real-world, scientifically grounded strategy and approach not only for overthrowing the existing system, but for bringing into being a far better, emancipating system that enables and unleashes people to thrash out together how to go to work to dig up and overcome all relations of oppression and exploitation based on race, sex, gender, and class. A revolution and a whole new system that can bring about the emancipation of all of humanity. Bob Avakian has authored a blueprint for how to do this in this Constitution for the new socialist republic in North America. And on top of all of this, Bob Avakian is actively providing the necessary strategic leadership through his social media messages at Bob Avakian Official and in other ways to guide us in making this revolution real. 3 years ago, Bob Avakian said the following in his work, Something Terrible or Something Truly Emancipating.
Things are not as they were in the past, and the reality is this: the profound divisions within the ruling class and in the society overall cannot be smoothed over. They are going to become deeper and sharper, more acute and antagonistic. Here is the fundamental truth that needs to be clearly and deeply understood. These divisions cannot be resolved within the framework that has existed and has held things together for nearly 150 years, since shortly after the end of the Civil War, which led to the abolition of slavery. They cannot be resolved on the basis of the capitalist democracy that has been the normal means of capitalist rule, dictatorship, for so long.
Look, things have already broken out of the bounds of what has been normal under this system for so long. The fact that some top operatives of this system openly called Trump a fascist is just one example of this. And these divisions are not going away. In this kind of situation, moves by Trump or his supporters or any number of other developments could cause these splits among the rulers in society to intensify. So now, here we are. You may be reeling from the result of the election. You may be despairing at the possibility of achieving a more just society. And if you're someone who thinks about the possibility of an actual revolution, you may be thinking that this election shows that such a revolution is impossible. But you would be wrong, very wrong. All the horror that we now confront, including the turning to fascism by large numbers of people, is a result of the basic functioning and dynamics of this system. And it is only in the fight against this system as a whole that all this can be fundamentally addressed and transformed. For that matter, it is only in that context of a fight against this system as a whole that there is any possibility of winning over some of those who have, for now, been drawn to this fascism. What happened through this election is an expression of the fact that there really is only one possible positive alternative and positive resolution to all of this madness, and that is a revolution to overthrow and uproot this whole system, which has, along with all its other towering crimes, given rise to this fascism. What happened through this election is also an expression of the fact and strongly emphasizes the fact that the forces for this revolution, including the Revcom Corps for the emancipation of humanity, must become the backbone of and come to the fore in the fight against fascism. And we must do this as part of the fight to bring down this whole system of capitalism and imperialism and put something much better in its place. This is not going to be easy, but it can make all the difference in whether humanity will be subjected to a terrible future, which just took a quantum leap forward with the election of Trump, or whether we will wrench out a future that is truly emancipating. Right now, we need to raise the slogan and fight for this truth. This whole system is rotten and illegitimate. We need and we demand a whole new way to live, a fundamentally different system. And we need to couple this slogan with the content of this broadsheet, which says we need and we demand a whole new way to live, a fundamentally different system. This broadsheet brings alive the content of what this real revolution will bring about, the liberating changes. And it spells out how this can be accomplished. It says very clearly, the existing capitalist imperialist system and the institutions of government in this country must be abolished and dismantled and replaced by a socialist system based on the Constitution for the new socialist republic in North America. So to everyone who has been shaken and rocked by this fascism, or who will be in the coming weeks and months, we have to tear open serious debate and struggle over the deeper reality I have outlined today. And to everyone who's been working for revolution, or who is just now starting to think about this revolution, now is the time to become tempered and steeled, to deepen your understanding of the need for and your determination to fight for the emancipating revolution that is possible. As we do, we all need to join together, uniting all who can be united from different perspectives to resist the fascist horrors that are coming and the crimes of this system overall. Together, we must declare and put ourselves on the line behind this declaration. In the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America.